Am I the a-hole for telling my parents I'm not a band-aid for their grief and they can't slot me into the wanted place just because their favorite child is dead at my sister's funeral? My 16-year-old sister died a month ago. We weren't close because of our parents and how they favored her and turned her into someone unlikable. My maternal grandparents, who took me in a year ago because my parents were straight up ignoring my existence at that point, told me I, 18 male, had to go to the funeral. 1. Because she's my sister, and 2. Because I needed to support my parents in their grief. I went reluctantly and mostly out of respect for my grandparents because they did take me in and got me away from my parents' house. When we got there, my parents were acting so different toward me. They had stopped paying any attention to me when I was 7 or 8 years old, and a year ago they told me they were disgusted by me and ashamed to call me their son because I wouldn't give my sister the love and attention she deserved. So, the attention from them was not pleasant and had been completely unexpected. There was a mini fight before the service because I refused to sit with them. My grandparents attempted to push me into it, but I ignored them. Once the service was over, my parents were trying to cling to me and hug me, and I haven't been hugged by them in 10 or more years. It frustrated me, and I told them to stop and try to shake them off. My grandparents were telling me to calm down, and my parents said they needed me and that we all needed to grieve my sister together. I told them I wasn't a band-aid for their grief now that she's gone, and I said they didn't get to slot me into the wanted child place just because their favorite child is gone. I told them I never should have come and that I didn't want their fake BS. My grandparents lost it with me and kicked me out for saying what I did. My paternal grandparents, who live in another state, offered to let me move in with them, so I made my way to them. I hadn't graduated yet, but that got messed up in the process, so I'm not finishing high school like I was supposed to. But I did get closer to grandparents who not only saw how badly I had been treated before, but spoke up and were pushed out for saying anything to my parents. There have been lots of calls and texts from my maternal grandparents, so I had to block them like I had my parents when I first moved in with them. But they want me to be ashamed of my words at the funeral, and want me to apologize and make peace and forgive my parents, and make up for my evil ways, their way to describe it, at the funeral. My paternal grandparents said my maternal ones always coddled and babied my mom, and it was no surprise they do it even now. But am I the a-hole for what I said? Now for the top comments. The one thing that makes you the a-hole in my opinion is that you blame the lack of closeness with your sister on your parents' favoritism. That wasn't her fault, and maybe as a very young child, it is understandable that you would blame and resent her. But as you got older, you should have been able to separate your feelings about her and your feelings about your parents. The favoritism made her someone unlikable, not that I didn't like her because she was the favorite. She was spoiled and not easy to be around. And I wasn't going to excuse that when I had to deal with her attitude at the time. Not the a-hole. Shame on him. And your maternal grandparents are horrible. They should have respected your no. Contact your high school and explain what happened and ask if there is a way for you to finish. Maybe online or at a local school. I bet they'd be willing to work with you. They weren't willing to work with us when we did try to figure something out. But my grandparents want to try to make something work before I give up and get my GED. Although I'm not really motivated to get that. I'd prefer to go do something instead of that, but I'll need a GED if not my diploma to get anywhere. Have your old school and your new school talk. You may be able to get your remaining credits in summer school, although it's only April, so you might be able to finish the school year and graduate on time. Depends on your transcript, I expect. Don't let it go. You also might be able to go ahead and take the GED. Don't waste time on that though, because the longer you're out of school, the less you'll remember the info they test. There should be GED classes that are free. When I did mine, as long as I took the classes, then they gave me a credit for the price of the test, so everything was free. There was also a life skills program for anyone under 21 that got them a diploma. Luckily, these were all free programs. Please use these resources. They will help you, and everyone I came into contact with during my experience wanted me to succeed. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife not to come to my ex-wife's funeral to support my daughter because my daughter doesn't want her there? My ex-wife died a couple of days ago. We shared a daughter, 14, together. Our divorce was not on the best of terms. We were both at fault. Nobody cheated, but we weren't the best spouses to each other. For a long time, we both tried to put our daughter first. But after I remarried, things did change. My ex alienated our daughter against my wife. I did what I could to stop it, and I made sure I tried to counteract what my ex was doing. I did fight my ex in court over it, but my ex did successfully alienate our daughter against my wife. This was 4 years ago. My wife was pregnant at the time, so it was stressful when we realized what was happening, and my wife and daughter do not have a close or healthy relationship. My daughter shuts my wife out because of what her mom has said. She has at times been rude to my wife, and I have stepped in to tell her she cannot behave that way. I told her I can't make her like, love, or be close to my wife, but she must be respectful. The rudeness was never a big problem, but the rejection of a relationship has remained consistent. Now my ex-wife is dead, and my daughter is grieving. My daughter has stated clearly that she does not want my wife or my son, 3.5, there. My wife wants to go to the funeral. She said my daughter will always remember her not being there for her and keeping her brother away from supporting her if we listen. She said that, at the very least, she must be there. That maybe our son is too young, but as her stepmom, if she doesn't show up and show she loves her, things will never get better. My daughter screamed at the top of her lungs yesterday because she heard my wife say she wants to come and support her. My daughter stated, very aggressively and in a state of raw grief, that my wife will not be a comfort because she hated her mom and nobody wants her there. I told my wife not to come. I said I will be there. And I know my daughter has mixed feelings about me being there, but she ultimately wants me there. My wife expressed that she was worried it was a big risk and that my daughter would remember it as her not being supportive later. I said potentially it could, but it could also show my daughter that she's willing to respect her boundaries, that she's not trying to take her mom's place. I told my wife it will be more difficult now because my daughter's mom is dead, and it can be hard to see the flaws in people's actions when we lose them too soon. I feel deep down that if she shows up, my daughter will turn against her even more. My daughter sought the advice of the family therapist we have visited over the years, and the therapist agreed with me. But my wife was upset. She told me she wanted my support and that she felt like I was encouraging her not to be a good stepmom. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your daughter made her choice clear. You and your wife need to respect that. If the therapist supports that, then there's nothing further to discuss. I say this as a stepmom whose stepson's biomom passed away. Not the a-hole. Your decision to respect her wishes shows consideration for her emotional state. Exactly. This moment isn't about being a good stepmom. It's about honoring a grieving child's boundaries. Respect now can pave the way for healing later. Anything else risks permanent damage. Why does your current wife want to be there in the first place? It's a room full of the ex's friends and family grieving. I wouldn't want her there either. What the ex said is irrelevant. Daughter doesn't want current wife to go. Respect that or damage your relationship with her. She wants to go so she can show visible support to my daughter, so my daughter knows she is always there. But I feel like it won't be viewed that way by my daughter even if that's my wife's intention. I guarantee your daughter isn't going to see it your wife's way. It's going to damage the relationship if you force this upon your daughter. Which is why I told my wife not to come. I know my daughter won't see it the same way my wife does. Next story. Am I the a-hole for calling my husband a disgrace after he said my miscarriage ruined his birthday? I miscarried yesterday afternoon around 12 p.m. I've never had a miscarriage before, and this baby was so wished for. So it's all so fresh and I'm sobbing right now. So I apologize in advance if it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. My husband turned 27 yesterday. I, 26 female, was pregnant with mine and my husband's second child. Yesterday, I was 8 weeks pregnant. The day before yesterday, we saw a beautiful heartbeat flickering on the screen, and today I'm devastated. I was playing with our 2-year-old when I felt a pressure in my lower abdomen. Not long after, I noticed bleeding, and I let my husband know immediately that I had discomfort and bleeding. Before long, I had passed what I believe was the fetus, and I messaged him, "I think I lost the baby." I wanted to keep him updated, and I guess I was seeking some kind of emotional support. I asked if he could come home, and he said, "Of course, if it's urgent." I said I think it is because the pain and bleeding were getting worse. I was starting to feel lightheaded, and our 2-year-old was unattended in his playroom at the time. We have no friends or family nearby that I could call who would get to us quicker than he could. I had to clean myself up, crawl downstairs to take paracetamol, make my son his lunch, and then put him down for a nap. At this point, my husband still wasn't home. He was working approximately 30 minutes away and took closer to 60 minutes to get back. Hours later, when I asked, it was because he'd stopped at Tesco to pick up some beers. I ended up very unwell, losing lots of blood, lightheaded, vomiting, etc., and he had to take me to A&E. By the time I was discharged, it was almost 8 p.m. Last week, I had said I'd make him his favorite dinner for his birthday, which he reminded me of when we were almost home. I said I wasn't feeling up to it, and that whatever takeaway he wanted was on me. He said for Pete's sake under his breath, and then muttered something along the lines of, "This BS has ruined my birthday." He didn't stop to get any takeaway. He just drove straight home. He put our son to bed, and I went to bed, and I'm not sure what he did after. I didn't see him this morning as he had already left for work. He hasn't messaged me all day, and he got home a few hours ago. It's now 8:40 p.m., and he's been giving me the silent treatment. I tried to speak to him about an hour or so ago, and he ignored me, so I called him a disgrace. He slammed the bedroom door and locked me out of the bedroom. His mom has since messaged me and said I need to be patient as he's also had a loss. She didn't ask how I was or anything. He's obviously speaking to his mom, but why isn't he opening up and speaking to me? She said I was harsh. I'm feeling utterly emotionally neglected right now. My body has been through emotional and physical hell. I understand that my miscarriage came at a freaking inconvenient time for him, as it was his birthday and all. I'm not sure if it's the hormones making me feel crazy, but is it nuts to contemplate divorce? Am I the a-hole for calling him a disgrace? Now for the top comments. If it were me, I would leave him over this. Some things you don't come back from, and getting mad at your wife for ruining your birthday because she miscarried and ended up in emergency is on that list. I'd be so repulsed by his selfishness and callousness that the thought of ever touching him again would make me vomit. Not the a-hole, and I can't imagine spending another minute under the same roof as this horrible, immature, cruel man. Yes, the miscarriage of a wanted pregnancy can be a huge loss for a man too, but that doesn't give him the right to be so selfish and treat you so cruelly. Your husband has showed a side of himself he can never hide again. Ask yourself if this is the kind of man you want in your life going forward. I'm so sorry for your loss. Last story. Am I the a-hole for asking my mom's husband to stop calling me his sole daughter and telling him my dad was meant to be my dad, not him? My dad died when I, 16 female, was 6. 2 years later, my mom met Jeremy, and the two of them fell hard and fast for each other. They've become very spiritual together, and they talk about how they were always meant to be together and find each other, how their hearts are one, and how they're each other's true love and soulmate. My mom has said Jeremy was always supposed to be her happily ever after. Jeremy feels the same about mom, but he doesn't just see mom that way. He sees me as his soul daughter, and he calls me that frequently. He said he knows it's crazy, but he feels as though he was always meant to be my dad. He talks about how Mother Earth gave him not only a wife but a child as well, and how he's so glad the universe saw him worthy to be a dad. It has always bothered me. I know they're happy. I know my mom sees my dad as nothing more than a stepping stone to Jeremy, as a way for the two of them to raise a child together. But I have never seen it that way, and I have never been close to Jeremy, which is something that has upset them, especially when I push Jeremy out of parenting stuff, because I do that all the time. If I'm asked to speak to my parents about something, I always make a point of telling mom I need to talk to her. And while she and Jeremy try to insist I should talk to them both, I don't allow it. That's when Jeremy and my mom really focus on the meant to be part of everything, and it makes me so uncomfortable. But in the past, when I expressed that, they weren't paying enough attention to really hear me. Usually, they're so caught up in these beliefs. I was 12 when they got married officially, but they called each other husband and wife before then. The wedding was a mess, and I know that's when they started thinking about all of us needing therapy because they felt their day was ruined by my refusal to participate in the wedding. They had this whole thing planned, where they were going to use Earth to express their love for each other and then plant a family garden where we each plant ourselves into that Earth and express how we were a soul family or whatever they were talking about. I didn't plant a thing, and I said nothing. It did hurt my mom, but it hurt Jeremy more, and she told me that. She said he believed so strongly that I was meant to be his daughter, and my outright rejection was difficult when he knew I loved her at least. We officially started therapy a month ago. It was a long time coming, but they wanted to find a spiritual, nature-based therapist who understood their beliefs. They and the therapist spent the first session talking about the beliefs they share. Then it moved on to the problems they have with me, not embracing Jeremy or the family we have. In our second to last session, I got to speak, and I said exactly how much I hate Jeremy calling me his soul daughter and saying we were meant to be father and daughter. I said how much it sucks to realize Mom only sees my dad as a stepping stone to her true love, without any consideration for me, the child she had with my dad. And I hammered home the point that I am Dad's daughter. He was, and always will be my dad, not Jeremy. That they can wish it away all they like, but it won't work. And I won't forget Dad, or act like he was some discardable part of the story they want to tell. The therapist asked me what it would take for me to accept Jeremy, and I said I won't ever accept him like they want. But if he'd like to be someone I care for someday, then he needs to stop calling me his soul daughter, and he needs to accept that I was meant to be Dad's daughter, not his, and stop saying otherwise. The last session we had was them talking about how they felt about what I said. And basically, Mom said I was crapping on their beliefs, and Jeremy said he feels so hurt that I won't embrace the soul daughter stuff, and look at it as a good thing. He said he's never had someone twist loving actions to make them negative like I did. Then the therapist asked me if that's what I wanted. I said I wanted them to finally understand how I feel and to listen to what I have been saying for years. I said if that hurts their feelings, then I could live with it. All three told me I had chosen to speak in a very hateful way and that I didn't need to disrespect their beliefs like I did. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Isn't mutual agreement a fundamental concept in soulmates or soul daughters? Otherwise, there is little to differentiate it from an unhinged stalker. If Jeremy is so confident in his beliefs, then why can't he just keep them to himself? Otherwise, it reads like desperately overcompensating an insecurity. Apparently not. Or at least you can have one person not know and reject reality for different reasons. According to my mom, her husband, and the therapist anyway. Is this a licensed therapist? No, at least not from what I can tell. Sorry for you, not the a-hole. You got through the last 10 years. 2 more. Not even 2 years. Start planning now. When kids are in their 17th year with all their stuff together, important papers and sentimental items, bank account at a place parents don't bank, part-time job, decent grades, college or trade school plan, and they up sticks and live at a friend or relative's house, the parents can't do a damn thing. Sure, they can go to the police, who, if they check it out at all, will shrug and say bottom of the case pile. They can go to the courts, and by the time a date is scheduled months later, listen to a judge laugh or scold them for wasting official time on an 18-year-old or very near to.